Every game can be speedrun, but some require more creativity than others to do so. Stardew Valley is one such game. Developed by Concerned Ape or Eric Barone, who is essentially a one-person team, this farming sim lacks some of the features we'd typically expect to see for a game to be speedrun. In particular, a specific endgame moment for the runner to strive after. What would Super Mario Bros. Be without Bowser and Peach waiting at the finish line for Mario? Celeste without its dangerous mountain to climb? Or Minecraft without the Ender Dragon lurking beneath the depths of the game itself? Runners run after a goal, and what makes Stardew Valley so fun, popular, and relaxing is its lack of predefined goals. The player is free to chase their desires at a pace that suits them, but some want that pace to be fast, and thus find ways to incorporate speed into how they play. In this video, we're going to explore different ways that one can speedrun Stardew Valley. Just like the game's open-ended goals, the categories one can choose when speedrunning it are quite numerous, and each one has its own twists and turns. This is not meant to be an exhaustive guide or a how-to. If you're looking for that, I recommend checking out the guides on speedrun.com and joining the Stardew Valley speedrunning Discord. Instead, this is a reflection on my short time learning about and running Stardew Valley, a discussion about the principles that underlie speedrunning and the metagames that we play when we run games. I'll be drawing from the book Metagaming by Stephanie Balouk and Patrick Lemieux in this discussion to show how Stardew Valley teaches us that we're always making our own goals, our own metagames, as we play. Before we begin though, I'd like to thank a few people. First, my fans who suggested and voted on the topic of this video. I'm hoping to do more fan-generated content in the future, so if you want to help pick what more of my videos are about, you can join the party on Twitter and Discord in the description below. Second, to the Stardew Valley speedrunning community, in particular Primitus, who graciously answered my questions to help me understand the game and checked this script for any inaccuracies. Without further ado, let's go. So the first thing you gotta know about Stardew Valley speedrunning is that there are a lot of categories to choose from. It can be a little daunting to just look at the speedrun.com page showcasing them all. We can see this most clearly in the Restoration tab, which covers all the ways one can restore the various places of Stardew Valley. There are 4 different buildings to restore: the Community Center, Joja, the Missing Bundle, and the Joja Movie Theater. 4 different numbers of players playing the game for the run, and 4 different rules subcategories within each of those. Taking all these permutations into account, there are a total of 64 ways one can speedrun restoring the valley. That's a lot of restoration. I'm not going to go into depth on each of these categories, that would take forever, but I'll try to give an overview. Knowing where to start can be a bit tricky, so I'm going to explain the 4 subcategories that allow and disallow different ways of playing, particularly because these are the subcategories for every possible speedrun. These 4 categories are glitchless, no major glitches, pasteless, and glitches. Starting with glitched runs, which is pretty much the anything goes category. Any way you can manipulate the game is possible here, resulting in some truly wacky speedruns. You see, one of the ways you can exploit the game is through the very name you choose for your character. Certain names can alter the code of the game and allow you to spawn in items that you otherwise wouldn't have. Since many of the categories are about collecting items, you can see how this can make a speedrunner's life a lot easier. My favorite glitched run is probably the Joja Movie Theater, which we can watch in full here. Confused? Me too. Basically, what happens is that in order to get the movie theater cutscene, which is the end goal of the theater route, the player normally needs to complete the Joja questline and purchase the warehouse from Morris, or finish the community center and complete the missing bundle. Fortunately, the player can manipulate the items in the inventory to have everything needed for the theater to be built and the building purchased. Thus, when the code executed from your name does this, you unlock the theater as soon as you start the game. As we might expect, this is a pretty boring speedrun outside of the technical expertise required to pull it off. There's little room for player execution. Not all of the glitched categories are this easy, but with glitches turned on, the metagame becomes breaking Stardew Valley. Less about the actual way the game is meant to be played, and more about the ways that the game can be played. The two categories between glitched and glitchless represent varying levels of glitches allowed. In pasteless, the player can use any glitch except pasting their name into the game. This means that the amount of pre-game manipulation is more limited than in glitched. In no major glitches, the player can execute most glitches, but nothing to do with their name and no item duplication. These limitations are meant to create more possible competitions. They are metagames created to better represent the spectrum of possible ways to speedrun Stardew Valley. Finally, we have glitchless, in which the player tries to accomplish these various goals as intended. What I'd probably consider the closest thing to rescuing the princess is the glitchless community center restoration. Most players I know view the community center as the crown jewel to strive after as they play Stardew Valley. This is also one of the longest speedruns of the game, at least when tackled in the glitchless category. The current record for this run is just over 2.5 hours, and the next closest time is over 3. While not too many people have attempted this grueling marathon, it's still perhaps the most complete run of the game. By disregarding glitches, the player needs to play through all of the seasons of the game and pretty much do everything in those seasons, experiencing the full gamut of Stardew Valley's systems, such as farming, fishing, and crafting. Of course, there are plenty of other ways that players choose to speedrun Stardew Valley. In the bundles category, we see who can complete the various individual community-centered bundles the fastest. The most romantic and heartwarming category is certainly the marriage one, where players race to woo and wed a non-player character as fast as possible. What's interesting about this is that while the player can wed many different characters in the game's dating sim-like minigame, the speedrunner only cares about which one they can marry the fastest. In glitchless, this is Shane, who is literally the most eligible bachelor of the valley. If romance isn't your thing, the final category, and my favorite, the mines, might be more up your alley. This is perhaps our most traditionally video gamey speedrun category, as the player races to get to levels 50 and 120 of the mine as fast as possible. It's like a reverse Celeste, where instead of climbing the mountain, you are digging beneath it. The glitched version of the mines is quite hilarious, as the runner has what feels like infinite bombs and just blows up the place in search of the ladder down. The glitchless mines run is kind of the opposite though. The player has very limited resources and has to manage them wisely as they attempt their descent. It was this category, Glitchless Mines Level 50, which is also one of the most popular for the game, that I learned in preparation for this video. I can honestly say that it is both fun and surprisingly easy to learn and get into. I have grasped speedrunning quite a few games, and Stardew Valley's Mines 50 was probably the quickest turnaround from learning the basics to actually doing the run. For this next portion, I'd like to explain the fundamentals for this run and reflect on my experience running it. So the goal of this run is very simple. Time starts when you make a new farm and ends when you reach level 50 of the mines. How you get there is up to you. The fastest way, at least as understood now, is to sleep. How unintuitive. The reason for this is that the mines don't even open until Friday. You won't be able to get to level 50 of the mines in your first dungeon dive, but you will need to be able to get there on your second plunge if you want to have a competitive time. Because there's an elevator to ferry the player to the depths they've already reached, the goal is to get as far as possible on day 1 and finish up on day 2. We could describe each trip into the mines as a cycle, and the best times are all 2-cycle trips deep into the earth. After sleeping in until Friday, we then need to watch some TV. You see, there's no point in heading to the mines if we haven't weighed the scales in our favor at least a little bit. So we check to see what the fortune teller has to say. And unlike real life fortune tellers, this one is actually pretty accurate. If the spirits are good, we venture into the mines. But if they are bad, we sleep and check in on the next day. We do this because in our descent, we are going to be breaking a lot of rocks, looking for ladders deeper into the mine. Each rock smashed and enemy killed has a small chance to contain a ladder. The higher our luck is, the better chance we find those ladders quickly, shortening the length of our trip and preserving our energy. And it is energy that we need to look out for as we mine. Each time we swing our pickaxe, we consume a bit of our energy meter, and we don't really have enough for the journey on both days. So to mitigate this, we pick up some food on our way to the mines, giving us just enough of a pick-me-up to achieve our goal. If you find little or no food, you may want to restart your run. Once we're in the mines, we descend as quickly as we can while mining most copper stones we find. We do this because the frost levels, or levels 40 through 50, and the final leg of our journey require 3 axe swings to break a rock, but only 1 cherry bomb, so we're collecting copper to make those cherry bombs. Also, breaking copper ore gains experience, and we need to get enough experience to level up our mining skill to be able to craft those coveted cherry bombs on our second cycle. Anyway, we finish up day 1, ideally on floors 15 or 20, by exhausting ourselves, as it is the fastest way to get back to our warm bed. We then check the fortune teller every day to see if our luck is good enough to venture into the mines for our final journey. We take the elevator to wherever we got to on the last expedition and then try our damnedest to reach the 50th floor. I've spent the last few days learning this run, and now I'd like to tell you about my time running it. The first thing you should know is that I'm no Stardew Valley veteran. I thoroughly enjoyed the game when I first bought it in 2016, but then I stopped playing. I did everything I wanted to do and moved on. Fortunately for me though, my wife has played a ton of the game, so she sat over my shoulder giving me advice as I got reacquainted with the game. My first couple runs were mostly me getting the hang of the controls and the general rhythm of the run. Unfortunately, I just could not get the 2-day cycle on the mines. My first run was over 40 minutes and took 4 mining days, while the next few runs I got in 3 mining days and around 30 minutes. I ran into different problems every time. Sometimes I didn't level up my mining on the first day, so I couldn't craft cherry bombs until day 3. I got stuck on another run when I couldn't find the last monster on an infested floor. One particularly sad day, I didn't bring a torch with me into the mines and got lost in the dark, unable to find the ladder. But with each failure, I was learning the ropes. I set a goal for myself to get to the 50th floor in under 30 minutes, which, if you look at the leaderboards, is not that impressive of a time, but it was enough to make me feel like I understood the run. I still haven't mastered the 2-cycle run. I continually ran out of energy on my second mining day, or worse, I was just too slow and the timer would hit 2 AM with the game kicking me out of the mine. Still, I kept going, and threw caution to the wind on one particular run where I hit the 40th floor kind of early but had no food left. I decided to exhaust myself and head into the mines on the next day. The thing you gotta know is that there are varying levels of luck one can get from the fortune teller. There's one that is a little lucky and one that is maximum lucky. I decided I would do the last 10 floors with just a little luck. This was a bad idea. I kept blowing up rocks and not finding ladders, but my original pace was fast enough, and I managed to just squeeze by and break the 30-minute barrier. An exhilarating moment, indeed. Unlike other games I've speedrun, I felt there was a bigger luck component here, but that didn't necessarily detract from the experience. Instead, it made every run different. I had to adjust on the fly to changing circumstances more often. The randomness, or luck, we might say, made the metagame more fun, and that's what I was doing. I was playing a dungeon diving metagame within Stardew Valley. I managed to reach my goal in only 4 days of playing the game, so if you want to try to beat me, I'm sure you can do it with a little effort. What fascinates me about Stardew Valley speedrunning and speedrunning in general is the way that it encourages us to play new games out of the games we already have. I had already played Stardew Valley before this, and for all intents and purposes, I was done with the game, but picking it up to speedrun the mines gave it a whole new lease on life. I learned more about the game and its systems than I ever thought I would, and more importantly, I had fun. The only reason this fun came to be though, was because I decided to play a metagame within Stardew Valley. So what is a metagame, at least in this context? Well, fortunately, we can learn from Bluke and Lemieux's Metagaming. They write that the term metagame is characterized by the deeply specific relational quality of prepositions as part of speech. In the same way a preposition situates the noun that precedes it, the meaning of a metagame emerges within the context of specific practices and historical communities of a given game. Prepositions are to parts of speech as metagames are to games, a signifier for everything occurring before, after, between, and during games, as well as everything located in, on, around, and beyond games. The metagaming anchors the game in time and space. While I feel this definition is a bit broad, I find that it illuminates that crucial aspect of games. They are not static. and the term metagame helps us find them in action. When I learned about prepositions, my 8th grade teacher used the house example. Someone could be above the house, in the house, from the house, or go through the house. Prepositions are a valuable tool in communication. It's almost impossible to imagine speaking or writing without them. In the same way, therefore, it is almost impossible to imagine playing a game without imagining a metagame afoot somewhere. Let's take a player's first experience with Stardew Valley. They have so many choices for how to proceed through the game, to choose what they value, to pursue their own goals. Perhaps it is how they build their farm, how they woo a prospective mate, or whether they support Joja or the community center. In each of these, we find prepositions that modify the way they are played. Metagames don't detail the what of the game, but the how. Speedrunners thus metagame because they choose to play the game fast, with victory and valor going to those that can do this how the best. But, to reiterate, it's not just speedrunners who metagame, it's anyone who picks up a controller. Speedrunners are just the people who quantify their metagaming and make it more legible through the measurement of time as a yardstick. I'm struck by the old writing tip, don't end a sentence with a preposition. Likewise, we don't ever really end play with a metagame, because we wind up playing the game itself. We get wrapped up in a sense of play, enveloped by it, engaged as everything else fades away. That is the magic of games, is it not? That we become so involved in the activity that we lose ourselves. But we can't lose ourselves without metagames situating us in a place, directing our play, laying the train tracks of our own pleasure. Whether it's for someone laying out their crops for the season, or dropping cherry bombs like a madman looking for an exit, the metagame places us in the game and pushes us in a direction, telling us to go play. Thanks for watching this video and taking this journey through Stardew Valley speedrunning with me. To round this out, I want to challenge you to get to Mines 50 in under 30 minutes. If you can beat my time of 29:54 and upload the video to the Stardew Valley speedrun page and link it on my Discord, I will give you a special badge of honor. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Have a fantastic day.